Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. It's the first episode after All Out, and with that comes suspensions! Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Pat Buck, no relation, Michael Nakazawa, Christopher Daniels, and Ace Steel all suspended as a result of their respective involvements in the post-scrum fracas that took place in the locker room this past Sunday. Post-scrum fracas is a very fun chain of words to say. The status of CM Punk as of right now, officially unknown, but he is not in the intro anymore, and he's no longer the world champion. More on that later. I don't quite understand why Daniels and Pat Buck and Nakazawa got suspended per se, unless it's one of those things where everyone involved is going to be suspended as a matter of course just until everything is sorted out, some kind of corporate thing. So that I might understand. As far as regardless of who started the fight, because there's a lot of conflicting stories as to who did what and in what order, but regardless of who started it, the fact that Omega and the Bucks were involved in this physical altercation, this backstage fight, it's not befitting of an EVP. Those guys have those titles, and whether they want to or not, they need to be held to a higher standard than the average wrestler. They're not just one of the boys anymore. They have responsibilities as executives, and they should be carried as such. And the way I see it is if these guys don't lose their EVP titles as well as being suspended, I may or may not be surprised, but I will definitely be disappointed. That being said, I don't think CM Punk is some innocent bystander or victim here. In his big rant he had on Sunday, he was accusing the EVPs of spreading rumors as to his involvement in Colt Cabana's status in AEW/ROH. The rumor was he wanted Colt to be fired because of their past history and their relationship together, which is what he talked about in great detail on Sunday. But I believe the reports in that Kenny and the Bucks weren't the ones who spread those rumors. Multiple different, journalists have been saying that as much, that those guys weren't the ones who told them any of that stuff. So Punk, if that is correct, and Punk is being incorrect in his assumption, him talking about the EVPs that way, and also I think it's kind of wild for him to just keep bringing up this whole thing, this unprompted rant that he had, unprovoked, unprompted on Sunday about Scott Colton, Colt Cabana, and going on to the EVPs and Hangman Page and everything. Say what you will about what Page said in that promo months ago that everyone would have forgotten about by now had Punk not keep bringing it up by taking shots at Page and wondering what's this guy's problem. He's the one who's making a big issue out of it. If you follow the timeline, he's the one who's aggravating and making it this big thing, not so much Page, in my opinion. Also, he's the one who said in that scrum, if you have a problem with me, come find me in my locker room. So what's Punk's future going to be? Will he be coming back at some point? Will he be fired outright? Will he leave? Will he say screw this and just leave the company entirely? I think any one of those options are still on the table. I think he needs to be punished besides the title being stripped. I don't think he necessarily should be fired. I think that just given everything involved, I think there needs to be some massive kind of burying of the hatchet. Let's turn this thing into a damn angle and make some money off this, because right now the interest in AEW and the curiosity surrounding all this madness is at an all-time high. So I would like to see on some level Punk come back and let's make some money, let's make some magic happen with this drama here. I feel that wrestlers have been able to put their differences aside for far more egregious things than a simple comment about workers' rights. Like I said, I think CM Punk's rant on Sunday was completely unwarranted and unprofessional. Even if he's not the one who started it, he's the one who continued it and escalated it. I think at that point he was just swinging his dick around and showing everyone who was boss, but Tony Khan needs to step in here and prove that he is the leader at this point, not CM Punk. So because of all this, we saw in a pre-taped message from Tony Khan early in the show that the World and the Trios Championships have been vacated, and we really hear no mention of those champions, those former champions I should say, on the show here. I think it's funny timing because in our All Out review that I posted, I said to Mr. Ooh La La, they can't go back to just vacating belts anymore because everyone's been interim lately, but hey, shut my mouth. Also, by the way, buy my new vacant t-shirt at ProWrestlingTees.com. I get why there was no mention on this show as to why the belts are vacated or why CM Punk and the Elite are nowhere to be found this week, but it's still a really just big embarrassment and a real big black eye on AEW in their relatively young existence, 3 years in. It's just to allow this backstage bullshit and this petty back and forth about it to fester and escalate into this big public spat that everyone knows about now, it's just not a good look. And unless they can turn this into an angle, like I said, it just makes everyone look bad. But backstage fights, political BS, nothing new in professional wrestling at all. No promotion in the history of ever has gotten away with having none of those things happen to them in their history. WWE is not immune to it. Impact's not immune to it. WCW wasn't immune. ECW, everything. And no one is immune to this sort of thing. So I'm actually kind of surprised and impressed. It took about 3 years for something like this to come to the surface in this public way. So I guess in that way, AEW has to be commended. But in all seriousness, I do hope that this is, just a blip on the radar that they can get past. It is possible to get past stuff like this. Whether you turn it into an angle or not, you either move on or you move on. And I certainly hope they can do that. And hopefully this week's episode of Dynamite will be a good first step in moving on. So with that out of the way, let's begin. The show opens up with a video package on MJF's big return on Sunday at All Out, winning the Casino Battle Royal in a mask, and then unmasking at the end of the show. They did all that without showing or mentioning CM Punk one time in that thing. Oh, that was very clever editing there. Then we get that pre-tape message from Tony Khan talking about the belts and what will happen with them. The Trios Championship will be decided tonight later on, and then you've got the World Championship being decided in a tournament that will conclude at Arthur Ashe Stadium in 2 weeks. And then it's time for the man of the hour. Maxwell Jacob Friedman is back on the scene here, and he was sorely missed, judging from the reaction of the crowd here in Buffalo. Got the big hero's welcome, practically. Huge babyface pop. He comes out wearing a Josh Allen Buffalo Bills jersey to get that maximum babyface reaction. He gets a "You were right" chant as he's talking about, last time you saw me here, I said some things I might regret, and he was playing it off really great here. He was coming off as this guy, oh, I was just kidding. I love AEW. I never want to leave. He starts an AEW chant, playing the total babyface here, but he's really sucking up and everything. He has a great line here where there was another wise Jewish man whose name began with an M, and he led people who were astray, and he parted the seas and helped lead the way. He says, I'm not saying I'm Moses. That'd be ridiculous. I'm better than Moses. Like, God, I missed MJF. I really did. And I think that this promo was a great return to form for him. And as he's saying all that, he talks about he's got the poker chip. He's got lots of money from Tony Khan, so he's playing it, pretty easy right now. Suddenly, MJF is cut off by Jon Moxley, the former AEW World Champion, who quickly points out that MJF's being a phony, and faster than that happens, MJF's facade totally unravels, and he's back to being his old heelish self again. Well, it was fun while it lasted. He talks about how he'll win the AEW title once he cashes in the poker chip, and maybe he'll take it to a real wrestling company where he can hang out with his good friend of the roller coaster, Cody Rhodes. And he says there's only one con in wrestling worth a damn, and that's jolly old St. Nick. And he also says that him as the AEW champion is best for business. So he's dropping all those hints there and everything. The war in 2024, he brings that up again. And then Moxley just basically, short and sweet, tells him to get out of the ring or he'll make him leave. We get this face-off here. MJF, he ruins his perfectly good dress shirt trying to get it off, and then he leaves the ring. So he powders. So then Moxley all by himself in the ring, cutting a hell of a fiery promo. He says that he's hurt and he's embarrassed. Doesn't mention CM Punk by name at all in this promo, but he does say that he's embarrassed, especially that he's no longer the AEW champion. He says the championship represents passion for the business. It represents, standing up when it mattered during the pandemic. It represents the vision and the dream about letting the old dark generation just dying out, basically. And he says he's going to take another game-winning shot. He missed the game-winning shot on Sunday, but this time he will not miss in the tournament, and he's going to become a legend, basically. Moxley is a guy who really carried the company on his back more than once in his time in AEW, especially during the pandemic, like he mentioned. And I think with guys like he and people like Jericho and Danielson kind of carrying that banner, business as usual, head down, back to basics and stuff, I think that was a good message to have. And for someone like Moxley to make that message, I think it was a very good call. Those vacant Trios Championships will be decided in this next matchup here. It was signed on Sunday at All Out, but now made officially for the championships as Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, accompanied by Danhausen, take on the Death Triangle. This is a great matchup here. I have no complaints about the in-ring work. There's a lot of fun stuff here. They're fighting on the outside near the stage during the commercial break. At one point, Danhausen and Alex Abrahantes have a face-off where Danhausen curses Alex. Alex, does the Zero Miedo in his face, and then Danhausen punches him in the dick. Thought that was very good. We get a double super kick into a code red onto Trent, who kicks out. Death Triangle hitting triple Canadian Destroyers. more dives, and Pac hitting the Black Arrow on Chucky T to win the match. So Pac now a double champion in AEW, and the Death Triangle are the new Trios champions. I thought great match, great way to start the show in terms of match stuff. My one gripe is that I wish Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends won it. They were my pick to win, and I think that for a show, I'm not saying that it was like, oh, the heels won, because they're not, but I think that if you want more of like a feel-good moment, I think, with those guys, with Cassidy and the Best Friends, they would have been a choice for me to, hey, let's kick this night off in grand style with a match, and hey, have the beloved baby faces in these guys, these perennial faces, win. And I think that would have been a nice touch, but again, that's kind of a nitpick. Still a great match. Shivani's backstage with the Dark Order, and they're soon cut off, as normal, by Jose the Assistant, who presents 10 with a contract, but Evil Uno reiterating that the Dark Order is not for sale. They get the Assistant out of the way, but then Andrade El Idolo and Rush make their way into the shot, and then Andrade giving 10 a crutch, and the whole thing, oh, what's this mean? Well, I think Andrade is just being a polite individual. I mean, he broke the crutch last week, so now he's giving me a brand new one. What's there to complain about? We see some fallout from the women's four-way match at All Out, the interim women's championship match. There's a couple of instances there where Britt Baker tries to win the match at her friend Jamie Hayter's expense. We see this post-match moment here after that happens where Britt's trying to explain herself to Jamie, and Jamie wants no part of it, doesn't want to hear from her, understandably so. Speaking of the interim women's championship, Toni Storm takes on Penelope Ford in an eliminator match, and Penelope Ford back on Dynamite for the first time in a while, accompanied by her husband Kip Sabian. A good back and forth in this match, pretty solid encounter here. You've got Penelope getting the advantage before the commercial break, throwing Toni into the steps, but Storm does come back. She hits a big hip attack in the corner, blocks, or she counters the Northern Light suplex attempt into a DDT to win the match. So yeah, like I said, pretty good first showing for Toni here. Good return showing for Penelope Ford, but yeah, that's all I can really say. Solid match. There's a promo package featuring Matt Menard, Angela Parker, Hook, and Action Bronson, who raps Hook's theme. Because what happened at All Out on Sunday, after Hook defended the title against Parker, there was a beatdown 2-on-1, and Action Bronson came and saved the day, and so they're going to have a tag team match playa happening in 2 weeks at Arthur Ashe. That should be pretty interesting. And then we go back to the ring. So how will Max Caster, good old Max Caster with his very topical raps with a lot of insider references that make the crowd go ooh and ah when he does them, how is he going to respond and put his little spin on all the stuff that happened on Sunday in Chicago? Well, we never find out, because before he can really bust out the first bar, Swerve Strickland's music plays and interrupts, and that's a great heel move, by the way. What a way to get around that, by the way. So you don't ever get Max Caster's lyrics, and instead, like I said, it's a pretty brilliant move there. Swerve mocks the Acclaim for losing the title match on Sunday, but then Billy Gunn interrupts and says, "This is not your house anymore, it's Daddy Ass's house," which gets a big Daddy Ass chant, and then Anthony Bones wraps it up by saying the Acclaimed are going to beat Swerve and Our Glory in 2 weeks at Arthur Ashe for those tag team titles, because everyone loves the Acclaimed. And I do think that, it's going to be a tall order for them to match what they had on Sunday, because that was the match of the night, in my opinion. I agree with a lot of people that say they really should have called it audible and just had the Acclaimed win those belts, but maybe they're saving it for 2 weeks. I think that'd be a great moment for them. Shivani is backstage with some members of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Chris Jericho reveling in his win over Bryan Danielson, saying that he found the fountain of youth and he's drinking it in, man. A nice little callback there. He says that he is the better wrestler and the better sports entertainer after beating Danielson. Tries to get the hashtag BWBC over. That is BWBC. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but he managed to find a hashtag worse than GFY. Jericho puts over the World Championship tournament and that he is going to win it all and become a champion once again. Also putting over Sammy Guevara for his tournament matchup against Darby Allin on Friday. So, yeah, Jericho, again, reveling in the win, trying to get over a new catchphrase, new hashtag. Let's see how long this one lasts. TNT Championship on the line as Wardlow defends and resolutely destroys Tony Nese. The match began, it ended, multiple power bombs, and that was all she wrote. Wardlow trying to powerbomb Mark Sterling after the bell, but then Josh Woods makes the save and pulls Mark Sterling out. Always good to see Josh the Goods Woods on TV. But then after the match, and after that all happens, Wardlow on the mic and reiterating it is indeed Wardlow's world. Well, That was something. We get a promo package from Darby Allin in regards to his match with Sammy Guevara on Friday in the World Title Tournament, saying, hey, you know, we've had very similar paths in AEW. We've both won the TNT Championship. We've both done crazy things, but neither of us have become the AEW champion. He says that he will have Sting stay in the back, and he hopes that Sammy can go out and prove himself by himself as well on Friday. Should be a good match. Those two do have great chemistry together, and I think, speaking of great chemistry, our next match is a wild card match in the World Title Tournament as Hangman Page takes on Bryan Danielson once again. They're telling the story here that Danielson has never beaten Page, and so he's trying to get that monkey off his back. And William Regal, the eccentric Englishman, by his own admission, is joining on commentary for this one. These guys once again bringing the heat in this one. Another pay-per-view quality match. These guys have not missed so far in their encounters. This one's another example of that. Danielson working Page's arm throughout, and every time Hangman does that moonsault fall-away slam, always terrifies me. Both men very fatigued by the end of the second commercial break. Daniel fighting to get that label lock in multiple times. Page hits the Deadeye, and there's a kick out. Danielson hits the Busaiku knee, but Page rolls out. He ultimately goes goes for the buckshot, but Danielson counters into an O'Connor roll, pins and wins. And, that was it. Danielson advances in the tournament. He'll be facing Chris Jericho in the next round of the World Title Tournament. And like I said, this is a great matchup here. Danielson finally getting his win back against Page, but both guys look extremely good here in the end. We had a Jungle Boy promo package talking about what happened at All Out, and he talks about, he brings up the fact that Christian was injured, which is why that match wasn't really a match on Sunday, but he says, once you're back from your injury, I'm going to take years off your life, he says. He turns his attention to Luchasaurus, who betrayed him at All Out, and says, it's funny that you were carrying me on your shoulders for so long, because for 3 years, I've carried you on my back because everyone thought you were a joke and everything. And he says, sometimes in order to get through the past, you need to destroy it. I'm kind of paraphrasing it there, but yeah, that was a fiery little promo, short and sweet from Jungle Boy. And then we're on the stage and we see Stokely Hathaway, who had played a big role in the Casino Ladder match on Sunday. He's flanked by all the guys he recruited, Lee Moriarty, Ethan Page, the Gun Club, and W. Morrissey, kind of standing in the background for all this. He wants to explain his involvement in the ladder match, but then there's like a stagehand who tries to wrap him up and tells him because they're short, they're light on time, so he's got to be quick. And so Stokely gets in the kid's face and tells him to respect him when he's got the microphone in his hand, decks him with the microphone in his hand, and then everyone else beats the poor kid up, and W. Morrissey with the big boot afterwards. So no explanation yet. I figure with this segment, you really could have just left it and not had it there if you weren't going to have any kind of advancement in that. Like, save it for next week. Well, these two had a great match for the Pure Championship at Death Before Dishonor a couple of months ago, so here's the rematch as Wheeler Yuta defends once again against Daniel Garcia. Now, per what Jericho said on Sunday, the Jericho Appreciation Society is not at ringside for the Dragon Slayer here, but that's okay because Buffalo's own West Side Gun does a rap and accompanies Garcia, another hometown boy, to the ring to a big old babyface pop. You got BJ Whitmer, Matt Sydal, and Jerry Lynn as your ROH guest judges at ringside for this Pure title match. And this is another great matchup here. You got William Regal on commentary still. Caprice Coleman joins for this one. And like I said, fantastic match. Garcia using his first rope break during the commercial break, but turns it into a hip toss to the outside, which I thought was a brilliant move there. Garcia hitting like a sick second rope German suplex on Yuta at one point in the match. Big superplex after the break. We get a slap off. Yuta throws a closed fist, which is a no-no in Pure Rules matches. You get one of those, you get a warning, and then if you do it again, you're disqualified. So he hits the one closed fist, gets the warning, and then Garcia gets the Dragon Slayer, his version of the sharpshooter, locked in for a third time. He's really digging back there at the same time. Yuta's trying to do a neck crank to get out of it. Then ultimately, Yuta taps, and Garcia wins the matchup here. A hell of a match. Hell of a fight. Garcia definitely earned the win here. I think it was a great showing for both of them. Wheeler Yuta did a great job as Pure Champion. I think Garcia is going to do great as well. The fans love it. The hometown boy wins. And then after that happens, you got Bryan Danielson making his way to the ring. And after the Code of Honor is adhered to, Danielson grabs the Pure Championship and puts it around Garcia's waist. What a cool moment that was. And then after that happens, Chris Jericho's on stage, and he's aghast at what he sees. And of course, how will that factor into their their match next week, because we didn't get any Garcia involvement on Sunday like I thought they would, but maybe now there might be some. It's very interesting intrigue as the show goes off the air. My grade for this week's Dynamite is an A-. Now, this was arguably the most anticipated episode of the year based on what we saw it all out, and if you went into this show expecting some kickoff to a grand angle building off of that, then you were sadly disappointed, because there was none of that there. But in spite of that, I think they had a kick-ass show. They was kind of one of those things, like I said, kind of mentioning Moxley's promo. It's back to business, going forward, fresh start, let's kick some ass. I think that's what everyone here did. It was full of great matches, great action, and a couple of great promos from MJF and Moxley. A couple of, not so great moments there, like Wardlow's squash, why was that there? And, the Stokely Hathaway thing not really being explained. You were better off not having it at all in the show. But I think everything else that we saw tonight was great, and yeah, helped me kind of forget about the bullshit with CM Punk and the Elite. So it definitely accomplished that, and if this is kind of their way to recovering and going forward in a potentially post-CM Punk world in AEW, what a hell of a year it was, then I think they accomplished that goal here. But what did you think about Dynamite this week, folks? What do you think should happen with CM Punk and the rest of everyone involved in the suspension and the post-scrum fracas? I want to hear about it in the comment section below. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.